Is drinking raw milk safe like RFK Jr. suggests? Can you reduce a glucose spike if you eat your food in, quote unquote, the right order? I'm registered dietitian Abby Sharp. I host a nutrition myth-busting podcast called Bite Back with Abby Sharp. And those are just some of the questions I tackle with qualified experts on my show. There is so much food misinformation and disinformation out there, and it can feel impossible to know what's real and what's BS. On Bite Back, my goal is to help listeners create a pleasurable relationship with food, their body, and themselves, which in my opinion is the fundamental secret to good health. Listen to Bite Back wherever you get your podcasts.
Frequency Podcast Network. Stories that matter, podcasts that resonate.
He's in the building!
Drink the moment. Drink it.
I said empty your mind.
Coquettish and coy. Ow. Ow.
What?
And there's people that are dying.
The wickedly talented.
More than great. It was historic.
Crack is
World.
Oh, good for you.
I have to apologize.
One of the hottest.
Welcome back to The Reheat, a podcast that re-examines the wildest celebrity news and scandals of yesteryear and asks, how would we react to the same events if they transpired today? I'm Sarah Sahagian.
I'm Sadaf Hassan, and because Sarah is moving house this week, yay, we've got another hot off the press for you. And just as a reminder, that's when we do a little episode that discusses the craziest headlines we're obsessed with right now. So I'm going to run through a few quickies first, in case you haven't heard of them. So just yesterday, well, for us, just yesterday, for you guys, a couple days ago, Meghan Markle posted a personal video of her dancing just before giving birth to daughter Lilibet in order to trigger the pregnancy. And Harry kind of jumps in and starts dancing too. I thought it was really cute, but of course when Meghan does anything, especially out of joy, it pisses everybody off. So she's still trending for that. Shocker. Next up, little piece of news. This is something. Elf Cosmetics, which I love, purchased Hailey Bieber's Rhode for a whopping $1 billion. That's massive, rare, and she's still going to stay on and be a part of the brand, which is pretty cool. And on a similar note too, Spotify just bought Dua Lipa's literary podcast, Service 95, which, by the way, if you're a reader, it's a really, really great book pod, surprisingly enough. So there you go. A couple of these girls really making it work. And I think it's because their companies are very distinctive. We could talk about it forever, but just saying Rhode is pretty great. I love Elf too, honestly.
I love
and finally, a little bit of couple news. Dakota Johnson and Chris Martin have repeatedly broken up again. I don't even know, like the third time. I don't know that I really care all that much, but just throwing it out there. Sarah, any thoughts on any of the hot items?
I'm happy for Hailey and Dua Lipa. Like, good for you guys.
Yeah.
And then Dakota and Chris. I kind of had forgotten they were still together.
No, me too.
Because they just assume that they're not going to make it. Okay, and don't at me. I'm sure they're decent people. I think they're two of the most boring celebrities. So I don't really care. I'm sure because they don't seem very polarizing. They seem pretty neutral. I imagine they can go find other partners. And also, this is kind of what he does. He dates, it's so basic. He dates younger, hot women for a few years and then breaks up with them.
Does he? Who else has he dated?
He dated Jennifer Lawrence.
Oh my God, I think I totally forgot about that. You're right.
Yeah. So this is kind of what he does. He does that. And then, like, honestly, he and Gwyneth accidentally conceived Apple, which is, I think, why they got married. I think, and so he just sort of dates these blonde young actresses and then gets sick of them. Like, I mean, Gwyneth, it seems like he was very sick of their marriage. And I'm not fully blaming her. I know a lot of people like to vilify her, and I vilify her for a lot of reasons. But, you know, if you can go back and read old news coverage of their marriage, he was a real jerk to her at many points.
I had always assumed they were very in love at some point. I think it was not the easiest marriage, but I thought they really loved each other for a bit there. At least the songs that he wrote about her, I love. I love Coldplay. I know you're not supposed to love Coldplay anymore, but I do. Sorry.
You know, it's funny. I used to think that the most basic band was Nickelback and Coldplay. And now I'm revisiting that. I liked the Nickelback documentary, and I feel for them. The documentary was very good. I actually feel for them.
One.
It's very well done. It's an interesting documentary about how they were arguably the first celebrities to be canceled, but they didn't do anything wrong. Like, there was so much vitriol.
Yeah.
because people just thought their music was bad. And like, they're so funny when they talk about that, about how traumatized they were, because they're like, we never said we were the best band in the world. Like, we didn't do anything wrong. We're not bad people.
I know. We could do a whole episode on Nickelback. I always felt a bit bad for them. And I won't lie, like, I liked some of their early stuff too. Coldplay, I really am. I such a fan. But again, like, their more recent music hasn't really captured me. I feel like they kind of not sold out necessarily, but I just don't like the sound that they've been going for the last few years. But their music used to be so gorgeous. I don't know. That's how
I love
feel.
Viva La Vida. I still listen to that one at least once a week.
Although I feel like that was the turning point personally. I loved the
Really?
music
I quite
came
liked that
before.
one.
It wasn't bad.
I liked the lyrics. I think it's because my enjoyment of music is very lyric driven. But you know, like, you're right that their stuff it's very technically good. I think I didn't really love them as rock stars, but then they're kind of like not even really trying to be rock stars in the traditional sense.
Yeah, but I also, hey, if you're lyric driven, I think that's them. Their lyrics used to be so beautiful. I think that's one of the reasons they don't click with me as much anymore. I think they've left that behind in the last maybe even like a decade. But before that, wow, just lovely. Anyway, moving right along. Okay, let's jump into some of our big stories of the week, all of which are couple centric. So if you don't like that, this is the time to check out of this episode. But first up, I really want to get into this with you, Sarah, because I'm confuzzled about this whole situation. Brooklyn Beckham, child of Victoria and David, and his wife, Nicola Peltz, have hired a representation to rebrand, as rumors have just been flying for ages that there's tension between them and his family, particularly Victoria. I always thought that these rumors were bullshit, but they haven't stopped.
Yeah.
And now that they hired representation, I'm like, okay, something's happening. So he also recently covered 2 tattoos he had dedicated to Victoria, which I think is notable. But also, interestingly enough, he allegedly has 70 tattoos dedicated to Nicola, which... Wow. Also, allegedly, Victoria isn't a fan of Nicola's, and she and David, again, allegedly have taken issue with her talking back to them. This is what TMZ has reported, so take that with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
But I was trying to add up the reasons here, and it's tough. There's a lot of conspiracies out there, but there's a lot of conflicting rumors about Victoria allegedly wanting to design Nicola's wedding dress from when these two got married, but she either later declined doing it or Nicola rejected the offer. Nicola did say in a magazine more recently that Victoria was going to design it, then said that the atelier wasn't able to do it, like there wasn't space. I don't know what that means. It sounds like a really big excuse.
That's not
Just
true.
for reference, Nicola ended up wearing Valentino. I did like her dress, I will say. Now, these two also weren't at David's 50th birthday this past March. And usually the Beckhams are always together, which I've always loved about them. Like, they get together for all their big events. And what makes this even juicier, and to me actually makes it more valid, is that Brooklyn's brothers, Cruz and Romeo, also don't seem to have the best relationship with him. They've been rumored not to be talking to him, but they also actually made some shady posts about him on social media over the past year or so. And I feel like that says a lot. I also think it's just really funny watching Brooklyn attempting to find a career path. We've seen him try to be a photographer. He even released a book of his photos. They're not very special. They're not special at all. I will link to some of them in the show notes. He's also recently tried to brand himself as a chef. I believe it was a Vogue video where he did like a very simple pasta, and apparently we were supposed to be impressed. I don't know. She recently wrote and directed her own movie, which did not look good, and that's me being very generous. I also didn't watch it, but just saying. Clearly the pair are trying really hard to cling to fame, right? And I would say that actually this drama is the thing that's keeping them in the headlines. They are currently on the cover of Glamour. I don't know how or why. I'm sure some of you have seen some of the videos of their Glamour interview. It's a surprising lack of charisma and charm and substance they have. He also seems to be just oozing with love for Nicola, whereas she seems to be very uncomfortable in all of these interviews. Maybe she's just not comfy on camera, but that's alarming because she's an actress. So I don't know. There's just something so off about these two. Sir, what do you think is happening here? And why do they insist on being famous and being in our faces?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those things where I guess if you're Brooklyn and you grew up super famous and your parents love attention, or in a very endearing way, like Victoria and David love attention in a very endearing way.
I think
right?
so
Like
too.
they admit it. Like Victoria Beckham is hilarious.
Yes,
she
thank
is.
you.
She's so normal. Like, she's eccentric, she's like the kooky mom you see at pickup. Like, everyone has a kooky mom they know, right? And so she's so down to earth, even though she's a little eccentric, right? But she doesn't think she doesn't seem to think that she's special and she can relate to people. And I really, really like her. Like, her coming to America is one of the best pieces of reality TV ever. I wish it had been an entire series. Like,
oh my God, Sarah, I love you because I think we must have talked about this way back when, but I know I love it. I love it so much.
Amazing.
She's so wonderful. She is so funny. I also really enjoy. I think they're just such a great couple and they feel very real. Yes. His documentary also was great if you haven't seen that yet. And she jumps in here and there and they're just, I love them. But yes, please go on.
No, I really love them. One thing I really like about her is her description of parenting. I still remember they did a Barbara Walters interview. I think it was Barbara Walters. It was a long time ago. And they had 3 kids at the time. And they were trying to decide whether or not to have a fourth. And she asked, do you want a fourth? And he said, of course. And she was a bit so-so. Yeah. And they asked, okay, well, why aren't you fully sold on having a fourth? And she said, because if you have a 4th kid, it's less about parenting and more about crowd control. And I'm like, that's so true.
I love that. That's funny.
It was funny. But anyway, they did have a 4th, Harper.
Yeah.
No, I think they just seem like a really sweet family in a way that most celebrity couples and most celebrity families don't seem real, but they seem like they actually hang out. And you know what? Here's the thing. If they aren't getting along with Brooklyn right now, this is such a relatable tragedy because a lot of families, even if they're loving and happy, if you have 4 kids, what are the chances that you're going to get along super well with all of them, even if you raise them well, even if you're a good parent in adulthood, right? Statistically, if you have 4, you're going to have 1 where the relationship isn't as amazing. It's just math. So I think it's relatable. I think it's really sad, but it's kind of a banal tragedy, right? I mean, he got married very young. They might not have been fully on board with that. There was no pressing reason to get married. Nicola wasn't pregnant, right? Like there was no, because I know his parents did get married young too, but they had a family, right? So I think they might have said like, listen, you don't have to do this. And they also had a lot of marital difficulties at the beginning when they were very young. And so they might have said like, learn from us. We're very happy now, but we probably, would have gotten married later, right? So I think they likely gave him that kind of advice that you probably should give your kid. And a lot of kids will take that to heart and say, you know what? We will date longer. And then some, this is their rebellious phase. And then they just get married anyway. So I speculate it was something innocuous like that, about them making some sort of comment like that. Or maybe, I don't know, Nicola, maybe she did say something really disrespectful to them. I don't know, man. Like, you don't know. So, but it's very relatable. It makes them even more relatable to me that one of their 4 children doesn't like them and that the other 3 are on their side.
I think so too. And I love that you say how real that is, that, sometimes when someone marries into the family, not even sometimes, this happens a lot. And by the way, a lot in brown families, especially with the sons. So I think that's so true. And I think you're so right because yes, Victoria and David did get together quite young. They're the rare Hollywood couple that has really stuck it out. And I feel like actually still seem to be very much in love. Yeah. But I will also say Brooklyn seems like a very bored individual. Again, he can't seem to find a career path. Now marriage seems to be his whole brand.
Yeah.
I feel like he's gone from girlfriend to girlfriend. Notably, he dated Chloe Moretz for a really long while. I feel like he's a bit of a serial monogamist from what I've gathered. And maybe he's also one of those guys that falls hard. It doesn't really matter. They're married anyway. They have been together for a few years. What's interesting about Nicola is that there's so many, also, again, I've never said allegedly this many times in a episode probably, but her family also has not the best rumors surrounding them. And those rumors have trailed her for years. Yep. I've read about them quite a while back. She's quite wealthy.
Yes, very.
And there was one big rumor that I've never forgotten. This is from years back, that she used to bully the family's help a lot, particularly the nanny, who she even allegedly pushed down the stairs at some point.
Oh my God. My God. Well, I mean, her family, her dad's like a big activist investor, isn't he? Yes. He's the guy who tried to buy Disney, right? Or tried to hostile take over Disney. And then
I think
they had to, and that's why they couldn't release Snow White last year. That's why they had to hold it so that their stock price would go up. So, I mean, I feel like if she is a bit of a bully, it could be genetic. Nature or nurture. You're being raised by a guy who is a notorious bully in the world of Wall Street, right? I mean, he has a reputation for being a bully. And I mean, maybe he's not mad at her when she pushes the nanny down the stairs, allegedly.
You know what? And again, this is from allegedly when she was younger. So maybe she's changed. Maybe she's grown up. I've seen a lot of talk recently, especially with the Glamour cover out, and with people speculating that maybe the reason she even married this guy, since she doesn't seem that into him in these interviews, is because she's also thinking about her own brand, and being adjacent to the Beckhams is definitely not a bad thing, even in 2025. Again, it's what's keeping her in the headlines.
Well, yeah, exactly. She's not relevant without him. I mean, money can't buy fame necessarily, right?
No,
so
and what's interesting too is he mentions having kids a lot of the time whenever I see them in interviews, and then she kind of does one of those like grimace smiles, and she's like, "Yeah, boy.
Okay.
How long is
So
this
this is
gonna last?"
Not very long. I mean, in this case, in some ways, the age difference, which is not that big, does benefit them because he's younger than she is. So when this inevitably fails, because, at 35, she just confesses, I really never wanted them and I'm not doing it even now, he will be quite young and will still be able to have lots of children.
Yeah.
So that kind of benefits him. I mean, here's the thing. Lots of celebrities have starter marriages. In fact, if they don't have kids, it's kind of a non-event. So if I'm Victoria, I'm probably happy that if I don't like this girl, she doesn't want kids. Because then, once they get divorced, it'll be kind of like it never happened.
True. That's a really good point. And you know what? I see Brooklyn as someone who's going to get married many, 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 many times.
Yeah, many times. My friend recently dated a guy who took her back to his place to show her his place. And he had this beautiful place in Vancouver on the water. And he's like, see this house? She's like, yeah, I paid for it 3 times because I've been divorced 3 times.
Oh my God, what a thing to say to someone when you bring them home too, though. Jesus. Wow.
Full disclosure. He's like, I just keep falling in love. This was his justification. I just keep falling in love. So I feel like that's the future of Brooklyn Beckham, a rich guy who just keeps falling in love, has to pay for his house, his beautiful house, multiple times.
Jesus Christ, I'd be running out the door the moment I hear that. On that note, I feel like this is a good time to take a quick break. We will be right back. And we're back. Okay, one other piece of news that's been on my mind, and we talked about this a little bit previously when we discussed the White Lotus, and we kind of left you all hanging because we've been hanging. We didn't know where this little bit rumor went. So here, I've got an update for you. So there was a lot of, again, conspiracies surrounding White Lotus co-stars Walton Goggins and Aimee Lou Wood, who, as you'll remember if you watched the show, they played a couple on there. They were so great together. I love those two. But there were rumors that they actually had an affair on set. Mind you, she's single, he's not. He's been with the same woman for quite a bit of time. Now, this week, oddly, the pair are on the cover of Variety, and it seems like it's just to do rumor control because the show's kind of wrapped up its press run. And in the cover and in the story, they discuss and dispel these rumors, or I don't know, I think they think they're dispelling the rumors. The timing is definitely odd, but at the same time, I think it's a smart move on their publicist's side to do this because it does keep them in our heads and it does paint an interesting picture. I'll say that much. The rumors don't seem unfounded. That's the thing when I read this piece. So Walton had unfollowed Aimee once the show wrapped. That's what got the rumors started. And then what added fuel to the fire was that their co-star Jason Isaacs, who's very messy, evidently, had been running around saying stuff like, oh my God, it was such chaos on the set and there was so much drama and there were a lot of romances that formed and broke on the set. So a lot of people naturally were assuming he was referring to these two.
Yeah.
So what's interesting is this piece is a good profile. We'll link to it in the show notes if you want to give it a read, but it does seem entirely just motivated by the rumors. I'm going to give you the juicy tidbits, but I do encourage going and reading the whole thing. So the writer notes that these two, quote, embraced for 30 seconds. They repeatedly held hands and exchanged compliments during their interview. At one point, he tells her, quote, you have the most beautiful smile in the world. You know that. He also says, quote, there is no feud. I love this woman madly, and she is so important to me. This is Goldie Hawn. This is Meg Ryan. She can do anything, and she will. You watch what the next 20 years of her experience will be. She is love, and I know that I am that to to her. We care about each other very deeply. Meanwhile, Aimee said, quote, she was much simpler. Why is everyone obsessing over Instagram? That is irrelevant. We don't give a shite about Instagram. Eventually, I just started to sit back and watch these people making something out of absolutely nothing. Now, there's more. So if you've been following any of the press around the show, and I'm a big Walton Goggins fan, so I was aware of this going into all of this, but he's mentioned quite a few times that he has a really tough personal history with Thailand. So his previous wife, she died by suicide back in 2004, and they had a big connection to Thailand at the time, and it brought him back to that exact same location when he was filming White Lotus. So it was really difficult for him. And so he explained in this report, he explained in this Variety story, quote, I knew what Aimee and I had gone through, and I knew how close that we had gone, and I needed to begin to process saying goodbye to their characters, Rick and Chelsea. And I knew that was going to take a while for me. So I let her know this is what I've got to do. And she was extremely supportive. I needed to just back away from everyone. I haven't spoken to anyone. I couldn't handle it. Judge me or don't. I don't give a fuck what you think. This is my process. Rick means everything to me, and Chelsea means everything to me. And so that's what I needed to do for me to process all of this. Aimee and I will be friends for fucking ever. Sarah, give me your thoughts, because you had a lot of facial expressions as I read all this.
Okay, so I know this cover was ostensibly to dispel the rumors, but obviously it's to fan the flames, right? Obviously it's make people ship them because that's good for their careers, right? I mean, if they are bigger together than they are apart, I think they're kind of courting a beta version of Brangelina here. And I'm not saying that he actually will leave his partner for her, but I think they're like, I think their agents are probably like, you know, that helped their careers and their fame. So this can get you guys from the B list to the A list, or just help you stay on the B list, because as we know, Aimee Lou Wood, who's very, very talented, was before this wasn't a name actress. Like no one, I mean, you might recognize her because she was on Sex Education and she's very talented, but no one knew her name. She's not a household name. I don't even think she was in the UK. So, and same thing with Walton Goggins, right? Like he wasn't a person I thought of very frequently, but now I think about him all the time, and I think about her all the time. So, I mean, we went to the dentist, and my daughter was told that like she has a little bit of a tiny gap between her teeth, and the dentist was like, oh yeah, so she might have that forever, or it might close in. And I said, well, that's really in because of Aimee Lou Wood. And the dentist like, yeah, people come now asking for that.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's adorable, and I mean, I think Aimee Lou is adorable. I do think this is tacky because if you're going to dispel the rumors while holding hands and hugging for 30 seconds, I'm thinking of his partner. This is such an indignity because she has to pretend that this seems like they're not involved when they're clearly performing romance, right? They're performing intrigue. And they're good performers. So actually, this makes me angry. I'd be less angry if they had a lapse and got drunk and cheated than I am about this, because this is so intentional. This is so strategic, right?
Well, that's what's so interesting. And I love that you said performing romance. Spot on. Because I feel like if they did have an affair, let's just say allegedly they had one on the set, you'd think that they would be running from it as far as they possibly could. So them doing this actually makes me start to think, okay, maybe they didn't, but there's certainly something there regardless. I do think something happened, mind you. Like I feel like maybe there was a kiss, maybe there was something that happened when they'd had a few drinks, who knows. Regardless of what happened in bed, there is a very intense chemistry between these two, and they clearly feel it, and they are in love with each other, which I personally, as just a fan, I'm very attracted to each of them individually, and I think they're both fantastic. I love, and so many of the great Hollywood couples are ones who had chemistry like that, right? And I hope we get to see them star in something else together. Like I love that he referred to Goldie Hawn and Meg Ryan. I think he's so right. I feel like Aimee could totally be a Goldie or a Meg. But what's interesting too is Meg famously had a really good on-screen partnership with Tom Hanks. Goldie obviously had it with Kurt Russell, and she and Kurt not got married, but they've been together all this time.
They're domestic partners.
Meg and Tom did not get together, but the chemistry was there. So I find that very interesting. I'm just saying. honestly, I'm eating all this up. I love it. I want more.
You know, it's so funny because we are polar opposites when it comes to whether we
We
think people hooked up on set. Like,
Yeah.
you always think people hooked up, and I'm always like, I'm sure they didn't. I think no one hooks up on set. And I don't know why that is.
Because
Why?
I would hook up. If it's me, oh yeah, you bet your ass. Like, I'm getting in there because I have a tough. Personal note, I love sexual tension, and these
Oh,
two
so do
are
I.
oozing it, right? And there's nothing
Mhm.
more satisfying than acting on that sexual tension. Listen, a lot of actors love to say, just because there's tension between us on screen, it doesn't mean it was there in real life. Yes, it does.
Mhm.
Yes, it does. That's what the camera is picking.
I mean, I think that a lot of them have emotional affairs. Like, I think a
Yes,
lot,
yes.
or are physically attracted
Definitely.
and would.
Yes.
But I mean, yeah, like, I'm convinced that if Sarah Drew and Jesse Williams had met earlier, they would have gotten married. Like, if like they just have amazing chemistry and they seem to really like each other and be so supportive of each other. And I'm like, I feel like if you guys met young enough, yes.
Maybe.
But yes, I'm convinced. And I actually think that they probably think that too, but are practically minded people. But that could just be me projecting. For the most part, like, I remember we had this debate about Gossip Girl where
Yes.
we were like, did Leighton and Ed Westwick hook up? And I'm like, I actually don't think that they did, but
And I, of course, said
most
they did.
fans think they did. Most
think they
fans think
did.
they did. I'm
I
just
think they
the rare
did.
person who's like, you know what? I'm sure they didn't. They were at work.
What's funny is I really personally believe, and I could be very wrong, but I feel like most people probably do hook up. Listen, even one of my favorite case studies for this is the Friends cast, who, having watched it just like most people about 1,000,000 times since the 90s and up until now, you always sense so much chemistry between so much of that cast, and you like to fantasize that they all hooked up. But of course, because Hollywood loves to say, no, we don't do that, you run with the idea that maybe it didn't happen. Cut to their reunion a couple years ago where they admitted they all hooked up with each other. I'm just saying, like, I think there's always probably mostly some truth. However, I want to go back to what you were saying about an emotional affair. I think what we're witnessing is these two are very in love with each other and definitely have or are having an emotional affair without even realizing it. And I find it fascinating that that's not an issue as it is as much as the idea that they might have slept together. That's fascinating.
Call Esther Perel. Like, I mean, she is love, and I know I'm that to her.
Yes,
First
she
of all,
is love.
and I know I'm that to her. Like, that's creepy. I'm sorry. It's a creepy thing to say about someone, but it's also creepy to be like, to speak for her. And like, I know she views me as love as well. And that's basically like, we're in love. Isn't that just admitting
That's
you're
what
in
I
love? I don't
gather.
understand how that's different from saying you're in love with someone. I don't get it. But having said that, this is going to be great for their careers. I don't know if Walton Goggins is still going to have a long-term partner this time next year. Let's just say it that way. And I don't think these two are going to end up together either, but I think they're shrewd. I think they have great representation.
Yes,
Who is taking advantage of this moment in the zeitgeist to package them and get them better name recognition so they can land some more IMDb credits before we forget about White Lotus season 3, right? Like, that's what you got to do.
Hopefully I would love to see them in another role at some point soon, but they probably need to take a little break before that moment, but we'll see. Okay, final headline. And another real life couple for you. Well, actually, ex-couple, thank God. Okay, this is a bit of a tough one. If you don't want to hear anything about domestic abuse or anything like that, this is a little bit of a trigger warning. So Halle Bailey, who, of course, famously of Halle and Chloe, and who was in The Little Mermaid recently, she recently got a restraining order against her boyfriend and Twitch streamer DDG. He's so basic and I don't get it. But anyway, now she got the restraining order for emotional and physical abuse. Here's the thing though. Now this week it came out that he filed a motion against her for full custody of their son, as he claims she's a danger to herself and him after threatening suicide in an old series of texts. So I find this so troubling. I was looking at the texts and some of the case, and what's fascinating is he's conveniently overlooking his abusive history.
Yeah.
And he's exposing and he's pinning her on her struggles from the years before, and he's using it against her. In those texts, she's telling him very explicitly numerous times how badly she needs his support, that she's alone, she's having a very hard time. And at the same time, she's calling him out for cheating on her just 3 months after she gave birth. He went out to Mexico. He had an affair. It's all over social media, has been for some time. It's obviously extremely messy. Cut to now. I was so glad she'd gotten the restraining order. And seemed to have broken up with him, and cut to now he's using all of this against her, and he's filed this motion which I believe would go to court just after the restraining order wraps up. Don't quote me on that. It's just really, it makes me really sad. And the whole thing makes me feel very icky, Sarah. Like, I feel like we know too much. And I know we've been talking about all these other couples who were getting so deep into their own personal lives. This one, though, is tough. At the same time, I like that at least the internet can hold this man accountable. They're skewering him, of course. Is that terrible of me, Sarah? What do you make of all of this?
No, I mean, honestly, when people have done something truly horrible, and there's a lot of evidence, I don't really mind the internet holding people accountable, as long as it's not completely disproportionate. But yeah, it's a really sad situation. I have not read the texts because I knew a bit about them, but I thought it would just be really hard to read, and I feel terrible for her. I feel terrible for her. I also she didn't, necessarily want all of us to read her text. So, but I understand. But I do understand reading them, and I'm not judging anyone who did. And I have read lots of celebrity texts they didn't want public.
I did it as a journalist.
Well, but yeah, and you know what? I probably should have too, to discuss them. But I just
okay.
I feel bad for her because she's so young, and I just found it really hard to process this story because of that. And so I hope she gets the help that she is asking for, the help that she wants. That's the really sad part, because it's not like she doesn't want help. She has, she even told him she wanted help. So that's really sad. And I hope that she gets the help that she deserves and wants.
I know, I do too. I feel like domestic violence stories are really tough. Like I was just saying, we're talking so much about these other couples and getting into the weeds of their personal lives. But where I really do start to feel like maybe we should draw a line here is when things like domestic violence and abuse come up. But I don't know. At the same time, this guy has spent his whole life on the internet. He's a Twitch streamer. He's a YouTuber.
Yeah.
Like that's where he makes so much money and how he's known. And she, of course, has been in the public eye for so long, since she was very young. I'm not saying that that's an excuse for us to be in their lives, but it's certainly a reason. It's an explanation. And I just really hope that this resolves in her favor at some point soon. It just all breaks my heart. It really, really makes me sad. I hope she's found some support. There's been a lot of rumors that her parents have not been as much a part of her life as they used to be, but she's got Chloe, she's got friends. So we're rooting for you, Halle. We really are. And DDG, you are a pile of shit, sir. That's all.
Yep.
And that is this week's episode. Thank you to all of our beautiful, beautiful listeners. You can listen to The Reheat for free on the Seeker app. You can also find the show on the Frequency Podcast Network or wherever you get your podcasts. If you want to hear more from me, you can find me at _Sadaf Asan. Sarah, where can our listeners find you?
Listeners can find me on Instagram at Sahakian Sarah. And if you liked this podcast, please rate, review, and subscribe so other listeners can find us too. And if you would like us to keep growing, we'd love for you to support us on Patreon at patreon.com/thereheat, where we've got some goods in store for you. Thanks for listening.